There is no reprieve anticipated for now. Indebted consumers will continue to feel the pressure as the cost of living continues its upward spiral. Along with the high food and fuel prices, debt repayments will increase as the central bank strives to curb inflation. Economists say inflation is tapering from its peak of 7.8% in July. It slowed to 7.5% in September and can be expected to continue a downward trajectory in months to come. It's expected that inflation could end the year at about 7%, but it's still higher than the Reserve Bank's target.
Well, inflation is still outside the target range, and my impression is that inflation expectations are also on the high side. And under conditions of inflation outside the target range and sustained high inflation expectations, the Reserve Bank should increase interest rates.
Expectations for further rate hikes in developed markets is likely to prompt the Reserve Bank to follow suit. This in a bid to shield the rand from taking a knock on the back of fears that investors will likely pull out money from South Africa to take advantage of higher yields in developed markets.
My view is that the Reserve Bank will try to stick to 75 basis points, although I do hope that the Reserve Bank will go for the big one and increase interest rates by 100 basis points. If they do that, they will very clearly send a signal to the financial markets that they're very serious about containing inflation. But the sooner they go for the big one, the less they eventually need to do. So my expectations are that they're going to increase by 75 basis points, although I hope they're going to go for the big one and increase interest rates by 100 basis points. And I think it's also important for all of us to support the South African Reserve Bank in their endeavor to keep inflation in check.
Others believe there are signs that the rising interest rates are already having an effect on inflation.
Already we are starting to see an impact on tapering inflation. The fact that the inflation rate has started coming off from the 7.8% high is an encouraging feature. It's also encouraging to note that South Africa's inflation rate has not risen to the extent of that of many industrialized countries. In America, inflation went up to over 9%. In Britain, it's now 10.5%. In the Eurozone, it's 10.7%. So our 7.5%, relatively speaking, is actually not that high.
It's likely that the rising interest rates will negatively impact spending and that together with load shedding will negatively impact growth. Jamin says there has been, however, a pickup in borrowing in the private sector, a signal that households are borrowing to compensate for the erosion of disposable income caused by the high inflation. This will likely support spending and growth in the short term. Gloria Sefakomosi, SABC News, Johannesburg.